Thanks for taking the time this morning to come and cut some hair with me. We're part of a three-part series that we're going to be doing with Hairbrain, Davines, and Method Education, which is my education company. First and foremost, I want to say hello to my two young boys at home watching, Oscar and Roman. They wanted me to give them a shout out. So hi my boys, I love you very much. So let's talk about what we're doing. It's a three-part series focusing on diversity in cutting. And what do I mean by that? Diversity in cutting means that, to me, that I want to be able to create different styles, different looks. I don't ever want it to be just one style. You know, some people like to say, I want my work when a client walks out of the salon to say, oh, that's James's. Personally, I don't want that. Sarah, if you come in here, we can show them what we're doing here. So the first part of this series is going to be focused on precision cutting. So we're going to do a really chic bob, starting from the front with graduation towards the back. And right now we're just working on a line. I'm working with comb tension. Now that I'm over the round of the head, I'm going to switch to the wide tooth. And we're just going to go in and cut a line.
So James, I do have to interrupt to let you know that you have many friends that are visiting and excited to see you.
Okay,
we even have a compliment on your shoes from Caitlin. She's quite excited about your shoes as well as your work. Dax says hello, so does Jody, so does Michael Fazzanelli. So yeah, all of our friends from around North America have joined us and are excited to see you today.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, speaking of shoes, I wore them intentionally because I think it's important that we understand body language when we're doing precision cutting. We really want to make sure that we're aware of what our body, what our arms, what our hands, what our scissors, all of those in our internal checklist are doing before we make a cut. So I wore these shoes intentionally to draw attention to them because you'll see as I'm cutting a square line here, I'm maintaining that I have a square line there. My shoulders are square and I'm standing square to my section so that I can create a nice strong lip line through the sides here. So back to what I was saying. The first one we're going to focus on precision cutting. The next one's going to be combination cutting using the razor as well as scissors and a little bit more freeform. And then the third one is going to focus on freeform. So that will be every Tuesday at 9 a.m. except for the third Tuesday will be at 10 a.m. So I hope you can all join. I'd love to hear where everybody's watching from.
So far we've had a few people that have mentioned where they're from. We've had Florida, we've had California. I know also that Anna Pachito is on, and she is from Montreal with Aura Distribution. So yeah, you've pretty well covered all four corners because we're based out of Vancouver, Canada. So we're up in the rainy season here today, and wonderful to have everyone joining.
Awesome, thanks, Jess. So now that I've got my guide through the front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a diagonal back section, working with the round of the head through here. And I'm going to take a slightly diagonal forward section through to the front. And this is going to be my connection point there, and I'm going to dip it in to create some nice graduation in through the back. I was watching another hair braid not too long ago. So come over here, Sarah, check this out. So we have to make sure that when we're graduating, because what is graduation? Short to long, right? We have to make sure that we can visually see almost an expanded shape here that we've got long and it's working ourselves shorter. Because what can tend to happen is our elbow drops and we just start layering it in through there. So it's really important that you watch what's happening from the root to your comb.
So I've had a compliment here, really wonderful compliment that says the color is wow. So that's a really great message to be able to read. We also have people from Ohio, Michigan, Mexico, and the UK.
Oh yeah, amazing.
So, I don't know, maybe you want to jump to a quick touch on the color from Sarah, who's with us, Sarah Sanager.
Yeah, so the color is a drop root with a steely platinum toner applied all over, and then the front section is actually 5 different colors that go from The mannequin's left side being deep and cool into more of a pastel through the center, and then bright and warm on the mannequin's right side.
Yeah, it's a beautiful color, Sarah. All using Davines. Davines mask with Vibrachrome. Jess has got the product here with us. And so right now we're right in the middle of a 3-part series on Davines Pro where we focus on understanding light. So this is the technique that we'll be teaching in a couple weeks on how to achieve this in the salon. But it's a beautiful color, and I thought it would be a great way to kind of showcase this haircut that we're doing. So I took my second section, and then I also took my second diagonal forward section through to the front. So what I'm going to do here is just slightly elevate, and I'm going to connect the front to the back, diagonal forward, and you can see in close here, I'm just going to add a little bit of layering through there. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us a slight bevel at the end, so it's going to hug the face. Because for me, when I think about precision haircutting, it's about the client should be able to comb their hair into place, add the appropriate product, walk out the door, and it dries the way it was cut, with very minimal work or additional work needing to be added to it. So that's something that I always keep in mind, letting the haircut do the work for you, as opposed to your blow drying trying to give you that style. So I'm elevating it out.
So James, 2 questions that have come in. One was requesting more information on the color placement. And then if you could repeat again, is there a name specifically that you have placed with this haircut? And then the third question is, can you do these types of classes virtually for salons currently?
Okay, so great questions. I think that's a 3-part question.
It is.
Can you do the first part of the question again for me, please?
The color placement.
Okay, so the color placement, basically what we're doing, this is part of that 3-part series that I talked to you guys about, understanding light. The concept is using the way that we merchandise product to merchandise our haircuts. And I think that's a big thing, and we can learn a lot from merchandising. How do we, think about some of the best restaurants or bars or lounges or art galleries that we go into, and we find that the lighting is done in a very specific way to lead you. And so that's how we started thinking about the color for this haircut. The haircut is a graduated bob, I think, if I were to put a name on it, just starting from the front rather than from the back. And I'll tell you an interesting story about why or how it originally began. But before I do that, so we're thinking about task lighting. So what's the task at hand in this haircut? Where's the focal point going to be? Well, the focal point I like is always going to be around the face. So that's going to be the task. What can we do to bring that attention there? And so working in a series of 3 or 5 or 7 or 9 colors, working in odds, we chose 5. It's more interesting for the eye to have an odd number than an even. And what that does is it forces the eye to look around and try and create a pattern. So using 5 through here, starting with a copper on one side and a deep violet on the other side, is causing our eye to travel around and really focus in on the face, but also is going to show the strong lines of the haircut. If you're interested in getting more in-depth into the placement and learning it, I welcome you to go on davinespro.com. We've got a great class coming up, not this coming Sunday, the 2 Sundays from now. And we're going to work through in a demo, hour and a half, and work through the placement and really go into detail the why for the color. Did that answer all 3 questions?
I think so, more or less, yeah. So that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And definitely lots of hellos and welcomes to you. And again, thank you all for joining Hairbrained Live this morning, Tuesday morning, based out of Vancouver, Canada, with James Abu Alba with Method Education, and as well a Davines artist.
Thanks, guys. So, Sarah, if you go down to my feet, what I'm doing, because I'm really not wanting to create too many corners in my graduation, I'm really working with small little sections and moving around my head shave deep into the corner on the other side. If you come over here, Sarah, you can see. So I've come into the corner on my other side. Just get rid of that little piece there. And you can start to see the graduation beginning to form. And then I'll come back over here. And we'll do a little bit more elevation. Once I get up over the round of the head, I'm not looking at elevating it any further. Like I said, I'm just looking at taking a little bit off there to add a slight bit of layering at the bottom to help it bevel around the front.
People are saying it's a pleasure to watch you work, and many hellos from all over. Many of your friends as well are sharing their greetings.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's been an interesting year, you know. I mean, it's been a year to, as artists, I believe, to really develop and hone in on areas that maybe we're strong at and we want to become stronger, but also for a lot of us, if we're weak in an area, it's been a great year for that. I mean, what else are we going to do except for train and practice? And when have we ever had the time to really focus on this much on our technique? And Hairbrain's been a great way of sharing information and sharing with the industry different perspectives. I find that with myself a few years ago, I was so focused on precision cutting, and I trained a lot and I worked a lot at it that I wanted to come out of a box. What I found myself doing was putting myself into a deeper box. And so deep, in fact, that I thought I was out of the box, but I actually just created a newer one. And so the last 5 years, I've really been focusing on the craft of hairdressing and not just the technique of precision cutting. Because, you know, for me as an artist, I want to use all the paintbrushes in my toolkit and not just one. That doesn't necessarily mean it's for everyone, but that's where I'm getting inspired these days.
So we have an interesting message here from Janet. She says, I'm broke but enriched and really enjoying the online education, because for many areas and even many countries or states, salons are not operating in full capacity or even operating at all. So at a time maybe where financial resources are not as available, I think people are incredibly grateful to be connecting. And even if it's not from a financial standpoint, just being able to see each other means so much.
Yeah.
James, I don't know, would you mind sharing kind of your journey in any way, or your why Davines? Because obviously that's like who you're supporting and the color that you're working with and the education that we work with together.
Yeah, that's who I'm rooting for. Actually, to tell the truth, I'm rooting for all of us as an industry right now. But I do associate myself with Davines. However, that being said, I do think we all need to come together as an industry, because it's the same as in any salon. If we just focus on one person being successful, then the industry will fail. But if we focus on everyone being successful, then we all thrive. And I think that's an important thing to understand these days. And that's part of the reason why I'm with Davines, is because that's their thought process. They want to see every hairdresser move forward and create a better future for not just ourselves, but create a better future for the next generation of hairdressers, but also society, because they're very into sustainability and the environment, and that's a big thing for me. Years ago, when I was first deciding which product to work for, is I first had to understand what my morals, ethics, my foundation was, and then I could decide on a company that matched that. And it's been over 20 years now that I've been working with Davines, and we still have the same values in the way we work. And it doesn't just mean the way I work in a salon, but also the way that I work as a citizen or as a human being, and I think that's a really important part to me, that I work and I associate myself with a company that share those same beliefs. And 23 years later, here we are, still sharing the same belief system, and I think that's an awesome, you know, proclamation for any company or for any hairdresser.
That's beautifully said. Thank you. I appreciate always hearing that. And the three of us have actually had a long-term relationship working together. So it really is nice to be able to have these times to share education, but also to be inspired by you. So thank you, James.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you can see now I've created my graduation in through the back, going over to the other side. So essentially what I've done is, if you think about here, I'm going to go and cut my perimeter in the front, and now I'll have a point from the left side to the back corner, and I just have to connect the dots. You know, sometimes when you're precision cutting, you can feel that it's too complicated, or you get lost in the amount of sections. But always trying to keep it simple is a really big thing for me. If it gets too complicated, then not only can my clients not achieve it, or my students, then we just get lost in me showing you how advanced I am. And that's not what I think hairdressing should be about. It should be about sharing what we know, keeping it simple for everybody at all levels to create really high-end work, to translate it to our clients at the end of the day. So if you're just joining in, I'm working on a graduated bob starting from the front, which just reminded me, I'll tell you the story about, you know, how I was told graduating from the front began. And Tim Hartley, who you all may know, a great hairdresser, a huge inspiration for me, he was telling me, no, I'm going to take this as truth because he's the great Tim Hartley. He was saying that they started graduating from the front because they were so bored at starting from the back. They wanted to see the result that would happen by starting from the front. And it's as simple as that. And they've created a really beautiful technique out of boredom. And you know, if anybody from the Sassoon world can verify that, would be awesome. That this came from, you know, his mouth, and you know, I'll take it as truth. And that inspired me, because whenever I find myself getting bored with approaching a haircut one way, I'll still try and achieve the end result, but I'll try and achieve it starting from somewhere else. Maybe I can start from the middle of the haircut. And that's where you start to get inspired of where you can, you know, really become creative and take your work to the next level, because that's how you discover new things. You know, if you always do the same thing over and over again, you're always going to get the same result. A lot of my students say, you know, why does my long hair always look the same? Well, first question I ask is, where do you typically start your long haircuts? Internally or externally? And if they always, and I don't like to use the word always, but if you get 90% of the time I start from the external shape, then 90% of the time you're going to get the same look as the end result. Your layers might be slightly different, but the feeling of the haircut will be the same. So I'm keeping my body square. Watching my scissors aren't beveling. These are all like little things in your checklist, because if your scissors aren't square and they're beveled slightly, you're going to layer it. If you bevel them the other way, you're going to graduate it. So there's nothing wrong with doing that, as long as you're aware of what you're doing is going to be the key. And you know, I think hairdressing is a little bit like Buddhism. There's more than one way to get to the top of the mountain, but you want to know why you're taking that path. That's going to be key for success. So I'm just going to work with smaller sections in through the top. Understanding hair density, hair type are going to help you focus on what type of tension to use. You know, there's so many different types of tensions that we can work with. And before I go that, I'm putting my finger right here at the recession, because if I'm just going to comb it straight down, what's going to end up happening if I cut that, it's going to pop. And when I blow dry it, I'm going to be left with a little bit of a hole there. So I'm going to compensate for that by putting my finger there, combing my section around it. And I can go in with zero tension here and cut my line.
So we have people from Saskatchewan and even Kenya.
Even Kenya.
Yeah.
And I believe that, you know, I have a cousin over in Palestine.
Okay.
Who, I don't know if she was able to log on, but she was really interested, and so I'm going to say hello to her if she was able to make it on. If she's not, then hello to her if she's watching later.
Yeah, and this is a great resource too, because people can watch this at any time. It's wonderful to have everyone live. And there are so many comments and hellos and greetings that it is hard to respond to all of them while we're going through, you know, the haircut and the color process with James. But we do see you, and we're so grateful that you're here with us today. James, is there any question that you think would be great to be able to ask the audience that you would be curious to know?
That I would be curious to know.
Yeah.
How many of you have that same thought process, or would you prefer to, you know, to have somebody see your work and be like, oh, that's Jessica's work, or that's Sarah's work, or that's James's work? Or do you want your work to be diverse, that your people don't know who's doing it? They're just going to say, that's a great haircut. Almost a bit of a mystery.
Right, creating curiosity.
Creating curiosity.
Yeah, okay.
If you like what you're seeing, you know, show us some love and share and invite some friends to come and watch. We'd love that. I wish I could see all of you guys. So like I did on the opposite side, I finished my outline, and now I'm going to take slightly diagonal forward section through the front. And now this is where I was talking about the connection. Diagonal back through the back, and there's my connection point in through there. Just adjust their head a little bit. I have her head tilted so that I can control my body position a little bit better. I'm of the belief system that, you know, my clients are able to move their head for a few minutes, whereas I need to be able to move my body for the next 20 years of work, if not more. And so I tend to have my clients do most of the moving, so that my body can stay upright and strong and healthy. Any replies to that question
Nothing
yet?
specific to the actual question, but in case there's like some new people on, there is a message in French coming from Sherbrooke, Quebec.
Okay.
So we'll be able to check that out later. But again, would it be possible to go through some of the color, because there is lots of interest and intrigue about the color?
Yeah, so I'll just touch on that real quick. Sarah,
Thank
who's
you.
filming, thank you, Sarah, really appreciate it. She did the color for this. She's been working closely with me on a Davines Pro, you know, virtual classroom that we've been doing. The concept is based on understanding light, so we take you through a 3-part series where, you know, there's 3 techniques that we teach, one based on ambience, one based on task lighting, which is this one, and the other one is going to be based on spotlighting and when and where to apply. And then you can take that into the salon and right away start creating more client loyalty, higher income, and ideally referrals, because people are going to say, that's an amazing color on you, as opposed to that's an amazing color. There is a difference. So with this one, this color, it's focusing on task lighting, and the task at hand is where do I want the focus, where do I want to control the viewers looking, and we work with odd numbered colors. So either we work with 3, 5, 7, 9, but I tend to not work with, you know, even colors. Why? Because the brain prefers to see things in odds, and it's more interesting to the eye, and you should try that sometime. Be self-aware of what is your eye doing when you look at 2 colors, as opposed to what is your eye doing when you look at 3 or 5 colors, and it forces your eye to look around. So even though a pattern can happen in 2 tones, at 3 tones, your eye is forced to look for the pattern, and that's the smallest number that your brain can start to create its own pattern in there. So that's why we, you know, work with odd numbers, is because it's just more interesting to the eye, and I really want to be in control of my viewers, and that's how we do with, you know, cutting hair. We're always in control of what our viewers are seeing. You know, how do we change their face shape? How do we open, you know, their eyes with, you know, a short little fringe that's cut out around there. So I always want to be in control of what my viewers are doing. The viewer being other potential clients, also the viewer being, you know, my client. And so what we worked with here through the front, we did a drop root with like a steely sort of tone. traditional color, working from copper on one side to a deep violet on the other. So we're going to go from copper to peach to pink to lavender back into your deep violet.
So for more information on this, this is where people can go to the Davines Pro education. That's 2 weeks from now, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm Davines Pro, and you can sign up for the class. You can DM me directly. I'm on Instagram at method_education. I mean, I love to support other hairdressers as well and see what they're up to. Love to see what you're doing while you're watching this class.
Awesome. And of course, you can do virtual salon classes too.
That's right.
So a question maybe that comes from looking at the color placement that you've created as well as the cut is, do you find that there's a change that you're noticing in how you're approaching your clients since returning back to work? I know it's been a few months back for us in British Columbia, Canada, but do you feel that you're incorporating any of this behind the chair, or have you changed anything recently?
That's a great question. I feel like, yes, I am bringing this behind the chair. It might not be as bold as this in the color families, but I'm definitely integrating, I would say, more complex coloring than what I was doing before. One, because, I've been really reassessing who I am as a hairdresser during this time. But two, I really want to create a wow factor for them. Because I'm not the only one that's been unemployed. I'm not the only one that, maybe had government assistance. And I know a lot of my clients have too. And so I'm trying to create more value for them so that they continue to stay with me and that we create that wow factor when they walk out. So if I wanted to take this and make it more commercial, what I could be focusing on is if her base color or her root drop is going to say be a level 3, through the ends here on the blonde would be a level 4, and then I would work with a 5, 6, 7, 8 tonality through the front, which makes it extremely commercial for them.
So James, I really appreciate what you just shared with that, because I think all of us have noticed that we've gained a stronger loyalty to where we see and feel the value in our experiences. And so I think it's really wonderful that you've touched on that and that you've shared it. Anna Pacito is on. She says that she is wondering if you are open to sharing your actual color formulas. I know that you mentioned that this is something you wanted to share more on your Davines Pro class that's coming up, but is that something you're willing to share?
100%, and what we'll do, Sarah's filming right now, so we will put those in the comments later.
Okay.
So check back for that, but we will put them in the comments later. We won't hide anything from you. I mean, the formulas isn't the magic is the placement, right? And learning, where to do that. So I'm not worried about
Awesome.
sharing my formulas. Thanks, Anna.
And I think another resource, since we're talking about formulas, please check out Davines Color on Instagram. I feel that that's such a great resource for people to be able to see colors and to be able to know what someone's formula is. It just kind of gives us a chance to share ideas, but also to see the mind of another colorist. So definitely check out that page as well.
So what I'm doing here is I just want to check out the natural fall on that top section and see where it wants to live before I go through and I cut it.
The shape is really beautiful.
Thanks, it's coming together. I mean, the color definitely makes the haircut pop. So now I'm just going to work through my sections and make sure that I haven't created any corners throughout my work. And now we've got a foundation. And you could leave it like that. I tend to find that this haircut, it can tend to dry a little bit heavy if you don't go through there and add a little bit of layering. So just think about that. We are going to go through and add some layering, but right now I want to focus on the fringe because I think that opening up with this short little sheet bob, opening up with something with a strong fringe will be quite nice.
Awesome. So where is everyone from that's with us right now? It'd be nice to feel a connection to places around the world and around North America. We're based out of Vancouver, Canada, and we're so grateful that you've joined us. Tara Lynn says hello.
Hi, Tara Lynn. So going into the fringe, I mean, the fringe is like an awesome part, a scary part. I mean, for me, it's always been a part that I was afraid of for many, many years, because it's the part that's right around the face, and there's so many different ways to cut it, and it's a haircut in itself. So today, again, we're just going to follow strong lines. We're going to work with a nice square line across here, popping it a bit shorter above her eyebrows. Normally for this, I would cut on skin, but I always find with mannequin heads, it's a little bit harder to cut on skin.
So we have everywhere from Chilliwack to South Carolina to UK, Alabama,
Awesome.
Maryland,
All places that I want to go and visit.
Mexico, Oregon.
Welcome, everybody. If you like what you're seeing, let us know in the comments. And
Argentina, sorry I had to tell you that one. Yeah, please share in the comments like James has mentioned. It'd be great to be able to hear and see your feedback.
So we've got this, and we can always refine at the end, especially with precision cutting. You cut the strong shape when it's wet, how I do. I blow dry, I check it, and then I'll go through there and I'll refine my lines, I'll refine my shape.
People are loving the fringe already.
So I'm using my comb just to keep my hair still. I'd love to be able to create like a class where it just focuses on cutting a fringe, but of course there's only one fringe per mannequin, so you almost have to have like a removable fringe and really go through there and create a study on it, because it truly is a haircut within a haircut that we're doing, and that's something that we really need to be mindful of when we do a fringe, beyond just a curtain fringe or a sweeping fringe or that kind of thing. But let's do things that make us scared and see the effect that it has on the face, not the client's face when they're like in shock at how short it is, but more in how does it affect their face shape, and work from there.
A question, do you use a shield when cutting fringe?
Yeah, sometimes, not all the time. It sort of depends on what I'm doing. Right now they're in a face mask, so I'm not too concerned about that, but yeah, sometimes I do.
Okay.
Sometimes I do. Devinez has a really good shield, but I find some of the other shields pop a little bit, and so you end up getting sometimes more elevation than what you're looking for. So it all sort of depends on what I'm trying to achieve, but I wouldn't say that I always work with a shield.
Okay.
So now you can see in through here, we've got the fringe. Sarah, you can come around. We've got the fringe coming in, and it's got a nice sort of heart shape. We will have to refine that once we dry it, I think on that side a little bit, but I don't want to cut off all my options right now, because things happen once this dries, and you can see in at her roots it's starting to lift, and it's starting to lift a bit more on that side, on this side. So I won't recut that until it's dry and I can see what we're doing. Now we're going to go into layering just a little bit through the back, just to soften it up, because we do have quite a strong weight line, and that would become a bit too heavy in there if we were just to dry it like that, which is not wrong if you're looking for a bit more of like that mushroom sort of feel to it, but for me I want to soften it up just a little bit.
So James, a question came in that I know you sort of touched on with this collection already, but the question is, do you have somewhere that you believe the trends are going for cuts and colors? That's an involved one.
Very involved one. I've got two answers to that question. I have like a really raw answer to that, which is the one I'll start with. I try not to follow trends. I try really hard not to follow trends. I get it, it's our bread and butter and this is what it is, but one thing that a quote that really stuck out to me was Karl Lagerfeld. Whether you like him or not, he was a great influence in trendiness is one step away from tackiness. Now, you can take that anyway, but that for me kind of really lodged in that I would rather try and create my own trends, but really customize a look that's better for my client than something that we found in a magazine. For example, we all know gray hair was a huge trend, right? Awesome trend, beautiful trend. And I think what made it amazing is that you had this ironic look of these young 20-year-olds, 20-something-year-olds that had this beautiful gray hair. And it caught on, and it caught on strong. But what we know as hairdressers is that you don't achieve that look in one step. But what ended up happening with the trend was you started having clients who were maybe more mature coming in, and they're saying, well, the trend right now is gray hair, so I would like to just let my gray hair grow out. Now, for me, when I talk to my clients, I say to them, the trend and what makes it beautiful is because it's on somebody who is 20 or 25 or young, and so you've got that contrast visually. When you start to be more mature, it's just gray hair and it gets away from that trend. So why don't we create something that's custom for you, doesn't have to be in the gray hair family, but might end up being a bit more beautiful instead of you just having gray hair. Because I think the public wouldn't see it as, oh, she's got gray hair, she's very trendy. I think she would say, oh, she's got gray hair, right? Because it's then age appropriate. So based on that one alone, I try and stay away from trends, and I try and stay away from following them. I would rather do something that is more unique than to do what everybody else is doing. And that's just for my own, interest. I think if I just keep doing something that other people are doing, hair can become quite boring really fast.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the question that came in, so
It's a
thank
great
you for
question.
asking it, and I really enjoyed your answer and can relate to that.
So
yeah,
I'm just
you
going to
shared
talk
lots of
real
great
quick
stuff.
here
Yeah,
about
please do.
what I'm doing. So I'm working with square sections. If you can come in here, Sarah. I'm working with vertical sections. Now, one thing that you have to be careful with when you're working around the head is naturally you're going to want to start pivoting your sections. It's important for here that we want to stay square, 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 or vertical, and not pivot. I'm moving section 1 to section 2, section 2 to section 3, and right about here I'm going to become stationary. I'm going to over direct everything back. So that vertically I'm creating a square shape through the back, and I'm maintaining that weight in behind me here. Sorry, Jess, to cut you off like that.
No, that's great. It's important to catch what you're doing in the moment that you are, so thank you.
Now, Sarah, if you go to my feet for a minute, what I'm doing is you'll see that my left foot is staying pivoted. So what that's going to do is when I return back here, it's going to allow me to stay in that same position that I was originally. If I start moving around, I could stand further in front, further back, and it doesn't allow me to keep that precision haircut going. And if we don't follow that, then we start creating a new guide. And when we create a new guide, we start to add length. So now I'm over directing slightly back, and I've run out of hair almost immediately. And I'll just carry that right up into it. Coming from the root up. And so now you can see the shape starting to collapse a little bit more in through the graduation versus this side where we've got a lot more weight just kind of hanging out through the bottom. And even if you're looking at the profile, it starts to hug in a little bit more once we start layering it. Now, do I move to the other side or do I stay here? I like to stay here because I'm overhand cutting this way and I'm cutting upwards. And if I switch to this side, I'm going to be cutting downwards. So if you look at it, if I'm cutting through here, there's going to be some push So I want to make sure that my cutting direction is going to be the same through the top. But if I stand here, the chances are I'm going to over direct too far past my center guide. So the trick for that is to take one step back, and now you're going to not over direct too far. And we're going to work the same way, section 1 to section 2. So coming into my section, you can see my guide underneath there. Coming into my section. What do you guys think so far?
I think it's amazing. It's beautiful. Lots of compliments. Your friend Oob says,
Oob.
You're the man. Love the color. So many other compliments. I'm excited for you later to read through some of the compliments.
Yeah, and I'll respond
and
to all the
readings.
questions as well later.
Good. Okay.
I'll go back through for sure.
More compliments on your shoes.
Yeah,
Yuko says, love the clear explanations. Love
now
the
I'm
layers.
over-directing back. Oob is a great friend of mine that I met through the Davenez world a few years ago. He's from the Netherlands, an amazing hairdresser, and I think he's just been nominated for the Netherlands Hairdresser of the Year. Am I right, Oob? I'm saying that?
We'll see if we get a response back. So whenever you have a minute, James, too, if you wouldn't mind sharing what people can look forward to for next week, at whatever time that it makes sense, because I know you're going through what you're doing today, too.
Yeah, so next week we've got an awesome color, again, designed by Sarah as well, and myself, and that will be part of the ambient sort of look that we've created. So it's an overall feeling of color as opposed to a very specific localized area of color. And next week we are going to focus on kind of like a pixie shag, but a little bit more free form cutting. So I'm going to take a vertical section and I'm going to bring it straight up. I'm going to find my guide here. You can see right here is my corner. I want to release a little bit of that corner there.
Pixie shag for next week. I'm super excited.
Pixie shag for next week.
I love it. Okay, so someone says, I've been a stylist for a long time. How do I step up my game?
How do you step up your game? In what way? A little bit more clarity on that, because it can be stepping up your game in so many different ways, you know. And one thing is, when I was a new hairdresser, you know, my father was a hairdresser as well, and he always said to me, you know, you gotta look successful before you become successful. And so you could step up your game in just in how professional you look at work. That's one way, right? I used to wear a 3-piece suit, believe it or not. But you have to look successful before you become successful. You know, that, I don't know if that saying is still around, but you gotta fake it till you make it, right? Have you guys heard that saying, or do you guys, is that saying still around? It might be non-existent now.
I've heard it.
So that's one way to step up your game. I mean, without knowing who you are as a hairdresser, who was the hairdresser who asked the question?
Yeah, the question went through and went past, and then I didn't hear any further.
Without knowing who you are as a hairdresser, I don't want to say this is how you step up your game, but I think definitely getting some mannequin heads and really doing some like introspective work on yourself and really having those conversations of, you know, putting that ego down and saying, this is where I'm weak.
Yeah.
This is where I need to practice, and getting as much practice on these doll heads as possible. You know, the last few weeks I've had some slow days in the salon, as some others have had, and I've been working on doll heads the whole time. And it's just about, you know, understanding where you're strong and where you need to improve. But I think the fact that you're asking, how do I up my game, is already the biggest step forward for you.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that work and practice, but also getting one-on-one classes where people can coach you and really help you grow, and will see things that maybe you haven't seen before, will be a great starting point for
And James, I mean, even if I can interject here, I'd say just following the series that you're doing now and attending virtual
Yeah.
education. And if there's something that you feel passionate about, then you could start paying more attention to that. So if it's color, if it's cutting, if it's color placement, whatever that is, yeah, because wherever your passion lies, I feel like you see the quickest results.
So let's give her a shake up and see how this looks a little bit more sketched out like that. Obviously, I'm not going to force you guys to stay here while I blow dry, so we've got a pre-done haircut like this, blown out smooth. Same color technique, different colors, but this will be the finished look once we blow dry it out, smooth it out, and added these are as our styling products. Day Day Spray is a must, Liquid Spell, and then with some oil. It's a well-balanced meal for your hair. Awesome. My go-to product. And then we finished it off with a little bit of Shimmer Mist.
I think too, James, one of the key things that you mentioned there with the liquid spell is it's great because it is an internal and external treatment. So when you've gone through the color work, it's a great support.
So here's the finished results, my friend. I want to thank you guys for being with us today. I want to thank Sarah for doing the video. I want to thank Jess for being the MC. And I want to thank you guys for giving up your time. And I will see you next Tuesday, 9 a.m. I love you guys. I miss you. Stay strong. Stay safe.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you
Great day.
all. Bye. Have a great day. See you next week.